What's up, everybody? Welcome to Move the Sticks. DJ, Bucky, and Rhett back together after a full week there in Indianapolis. Buck, it's great to see you. How are you doing, my friend?
Man, I'm doing okay. But first, let me ask you how you're doing, because one of your mentors recently passed away, Chris Mortensen. I would like to give you an opportunity just to kind of talk about what he meant to you, because I know he really helped you get into the biz, but I don't know if people really know the intimate details on how he kind of helped you advance your career.
Yeah, and look, Rhett had a long relationship, him and his dad, with Mort as well. So I'll let Rhett follow on this one and kind of tell his stories. But I met Chris Mortensen the year the Super Bowl was in San Diego, the Broncos Packers Super Bowl.
97.
97. So I was trying to remember if I was a senior in high school or as a freshman in college. I was a freshman in college, and I was home. I guess at that, for winter break or whatever you call it. And he loved my dad. He listened to my dad on the radio for years and years and years. And so my dad, for those who don't know, is a pastor in San Diego. And so it was 2 weeks with the Super Bowl then. So the dead week, he wanted to go to my dad's church. So he went to my dad's church, came up afterwards, introduced himself. My dad, obviously he recognized him and knew who he was. So unbeknownst to me, I leave church and I come home, and sitting at my dining room table was Chris Mortensen. My dad had invited him up to lunch, and he had kindly accepted, and we just kind of hit it off. And that we finished lunch, and I kind of asked him, like, what do you have to do during the Super Bowl week? And he said, tomorrow I am interviewing Reggie White in a one-on-one. I said, oh, that's really cool. He goes, you want to come? And I said, yes, please. So I went and sat off to the side, met Reggie White, and watched him interview him. Then he invited me to go to the media day, gave me a pass. Like, this was a whole different,
this was easier to get a pass.
A lot easier to get a pass in those days. So went and did the media day, all that stuff. And then we just kind of kept up with each other. He went and saw me play against Auburn when I was at, I think he saw it twice there when I redshirt year. No. It was he saw me when I was at App State. So we went to a game there. He came up to App State and visited me. When I hurt my knee in college, it was in spring ball in 98 or whatever it was, and I was down and depressed. And he said, hey, can you do you want to come up to the draft and answer my phones? And I was like, great. I can sit down. I don't have to move anywhere. I got a bad knee. That flew me up there, paid for everything. I did just a bunch of research for him. I was giving him little information, little cards and stuff that I had put together, and then really just kind of answered his phones. But that was just this friendship that kind of developed literally when I was a freshman in college. And then he helped me get a volunteer internship at the Orange Bowl my senior year. So I was a runner for the Orange Bowl. The producer of that show ended up becoming the producer, Jay Rothman, of Sunday Night Football. So I graduated college. He gave me a job on the crew. I can go, this is a long story, but it goes on and on and on. And so he kind of just opened all these doors for me. And it was somebody that was, just a dear friend. And the interesting, Rhett, I'll get over to you, and you can tell a little bit of your more history. But, grieving's interesting, because that first day I was devastated. We find out at the combine, found out a little bit earlier in the day when my dad called me, and I was like, man, I don't really feel like doing this and covering this. It doesn't feel right. And then then I kind of hear Mort talking, like he would have been so mad at me if we didn't finish this thing out. So I said, you know what, I'm going to do this with all the joy and all the passion that I can. And then we had a chance once the news broke to say what we did at the end of the broadcast. But I woke up the next day, Rhett.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how. I woke up just so filled with joy and thankfulness, for all the time and all the memories. And for those who don't know, he had stage 4 throat cancer for 8 years.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, all the times that we've got to talk and text and hang out. 8 years, what a blessing that was, like a bonus. So I just woke up with just a different outlook on it. I think grief's different for everybody, but that's where I am.
Well, and as I told you, there's a reason we say rest in peace, because there is a peacefulness that comes with it, and obviously those that are closest to him, it'll take some time to find that, right? But yeah, I look back on, so I met Mort, same place I met you, Thibodaux, Louisiana,
Manning Passing
Academy, and we were roommates in it's not, not directly, but we were all, my dad, legendary trainer in Major League Baseball, Barry Weinberg, and Mort. The four of us were suite mates, I guess you could say, right? So we were all in one of those 4-person dorm rooms. And man, I mean, you hear about people talk about how Mort was like was lighthearted, was always like a bit of a prankster. I mean, whether, it was toothpaste on a doorknob, it was like he'd crumple up a bunch of beer cans and put them on my bed and take a picture. It's like, hey, sending this over to NFL Network right now. I'm like, what are we doing? And, but the thing I remember I tweeted about it was like, he always went to Walmart and bought a coffee maker for those 2 days that he was going to be there. Like we all couldn't go buy our own cup. I don't even know if he drank a cup of the coffee, but he knew that everybody else wanted coffee when they woke up at 6 a.m. to get that 18-hour day started. And so he would always do that. You could always count on him, for that. And I just, it made me think about how, so many of the stories of, even yours, DJ, and others talking about the things that he did for them. Right. As a, a man built for others. And I think that's something we all strive to be. And he certainly was that. And we had great times together, sharing stories. And when he and Barry, and you remember Mort covered baseball, right? I mean, he was a baseball guy, early on in his career and growing up here in Southern California, loved the Dodgers and all that. And I mean, he and Barry would get on. I mean, they could go for hours telling baseball stories. Now, if you think he knew football, he knew baseball too, which I don't know if a whole lot of people actually knew about Mort, but man, he loved sport.
He covered like George Brett in high school. Like that's how far back it went. Yeah,
exactly. So I loved spending time with him. I loved getting a chance to, like, we'd sit on the couch. You come in from practice, there was Mort sitting on the couch, typing or texting somebody, and just get a chance to sit down and just kind of be a fly on the wall for his experiences was pretty cool.
That's great, man. Those are great stories. Now, I really didn't know the depth of just the history that he had with Rhett. Like that. That's fascinating. But
15 years, we were roommates.
Yeah, 15 years. I would just say, like, on a side, like, I just thought, like, for me, when I first kind of got into business as a writer, the only thing I ever wanted was just to be respected if you sit in the press box. That if someone who was a decorated writer would just acknowledge your presence, it was always a big thing. And I can't thank him enough for being at a game and just like talking and just being willing to give. I think the lesson that I take from him is just how you guys are talking about how he was so willing to give to you guys.
Yeah.
I think that is a rare quality. And just the way that we all have been in very competitive environments, but the way that he handled the thing when Adam Schefter came over from NFL Network to ESPN, and something that could have been adversarial, he made it very welcoming, and you would see them together. And so I think for me, the lesson that I take from watching him is, man, like, when you just pay it forward, if you're good to other people, you always get it back in kind. And so, like, if we can just learn that part of just trying to make it better for others that come behind us, you certainly get rewarded in the end. And I think he certainly was rewarded by the amount of people that showed an outpouring of love and affection for him.
I'll end it on a fun note, and then we're going to get into the combine here and what we saw on the offensive side of the ball, as well as do some of those franchise foundational pieces for the AFC West in a minute. But I'll end it on this one. I was going through Twitter and just reading all the tributes and all the stories. It was so cool. And then there was one, and I think it was like a TV station in Houston or something. And it said, it was just Chris Mortensen, legendary reporter, has passed away at the age of 72. And it was a picture of someone who was not Mort. It was a picture of another reporter that they had got the picture wrong.
Yeah.
So I screen grabbed it and I texted Schefter and I said, knowing Mort and knowing Mort's sick sense of humor, this is his favorite tribute that showed up on social media. And he wrote back,
ABC 7 Los Angeles.
Yes, and he said, "Oh, we've already been sharing that around," and said that would be the only one that he would have enjoyed. So he had a great sense of humor, man.
He did.
Anyways,
very good.
Again, our thoughts with Alex, his son, and Mickey, his wife.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into what we saw at the combine, guys. Let's focus on the offense on this episode.
Sure.
And man, a lot of different places we can go, but I'm going to actually start on the offensive line because the record, I had Jack Andrade look this up for us, and the record for tackles, it could be 7. You could say 7 or you could say 8 because, Buck, you remember this. Brandon Albert had played guard at Virginia because of DeBrickashaw and Eugene Monroe. And then he played a decade or whatever at tackle in the NFL. Was a great tackle, Pro Bowl player. But they drafted him as a tackle. So if we say that's eight tackles was the record, and I think it was 2008. So I think we got a chance to get that this year with this depth of this offensive line class.
I absolutely agree with you. I think everyone will talk about the depth of the wide receiver class, but the depth of the offensive tackle class is different because it's so hard to build a team up from the line of scrimmage. And when you see the amount of big, fast, long, strong bodies that are manning that position, to me, it just makes more sense in the first round to grab one of those guys because it changes your franchise. And when you watch those guys, and I know people kind of have this love-hate affair with the combine, but I think the one thing that they should take from it is not just the testing, but watching those big guy moves.
Yeah.
The evolution of the position in terms of the athleticism that we're seeing from the Dancing Bears, to me, is everything. And I just believe, like you talked about, that record is in jeopardy because there are a ton of franchise caliber tackles that are available. And it used to just be left tackles, but I'm saying they're franchise caliber right tackles that will man those positions for a long time.
Yeah, and look, it does feel. All the guys that you guys have, that Bucky you listed in your top 5, they're all going. They're all going in the first round. They might go in the first 15 picks, right? DJ, all the guys you have up there in your top 5, and then it feels like the line of demarcation comes like when we get down into maybe like the Jordan Morgans of the world from Arizona. But for me, like Troy Fautanu from Washington,
he was
going.
the best in show. He was the best in show.
He was going the first round.
There's a difference now with him to the point where if you were in the draft room and you said, let's combine what you see on the tape and then with the workout, and you're going to you can make a case he's the best offensive lineman in the draft. He 100%. Has got a different level of snap and explosiveness to him. He moves different.
Take him as a tight end.
Yeah. That was impressive. Like that was, I'm not going to, you're not going to compare somebody to Trent Williams, but I remember watching Trent Williams move around and going like, that does not look like an offensive lineman moving around like that. Like this guy's he's different and he's going to go. He's absolutely going to go. And he's not super tall, but he's got long arms, got 34-inch arms. Yeah. I see Rashawn Slater play the left tackle position at a very high level. And I'm like, this dude can absolutely play tackle, Buck.
No question.
Yeah, he absolutely can. And the funny thing is, like, coming into the year, there was a lot of conversation about him, and then like it just kind of gets lost in the sauce. And I feel like the combine, which is supposed to be, it's a great reminder. It's a great thing to be like, oh, you know what? I probably need to go back on the tape and just make sure that I haven't like forgotten about him, or I make sure I give him his just due. For me, when it comes to those top 5 lists, you only have 5, but there's so many guys, particularly this year at that position, that you want to make sure that you can continue to mention as kind of those blue chip prospects. He is one of those guys. That performance that he put on in Indianapolis was absolutely special.
Yeah, and Fuaga's aced another test.
Oh, yeah.
Surprise.
Oh,
I mean, he's another one where he's my number 2 guy. I had him one spot behind Joe Alt. Now, Joe Alt is literally a giant. He is almost
6'8" and 5'8".
Yeah, he's insane. That's a big dude. But Fuaga, I think his tape is a little bit better. He doesn't have the ideal length, obviously that at his size, even though he's a massive human being. I thought he had a better workout than Alt. And I could make a strong argument that he could be the first one to go.
And the only thing that I would say is like, Olu Fashanu, we didn't get a chance to see him, run the drills.
Although he ran 5.11, I believe, and pulled at like the 30-yard mark, or
so like it's going to go faster. I was going to go faster, right? But I mean, I certainly wouldn't be shocked to see Alt, Fashanu, and maybe even another tackle at this point.Maybe even I don't know.
Fuaga's going to go. I mean, those guys are
those
going.
guys be top 2 now, right? And it feels like Fashanu's fighting for 3 at this point.
That's kind of what it feels like to me. Yeah, and I think that you're going to have a fascinating discussion between Fautanu and Fashanu, which is going to make for a fascinating
great
word salad
right,
as we try and debate all that stuff. But then look, it was a long list of tackles. How about how I know he pulled, but have you ever seen anybody more impressive looking than Mims? Have you ever seen anybody? I mean, he had Tristan Wirfs. He had Tristan Wirfs lower half, Buck, but with like 2 or 3 more inches, like height wise, like he's just enormous.
I know.
And the largest hands of any human at the combine this year.
Yeah.
11.25-inch hands. Like that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Just moving the way that he moves to go about it. They talked about only playing like 8 or 9 games.
Started
but
8 games.
you're just looking at the potential. And if you're one of those teams, you know how we always talk about scout the coaches. Man, if your scouts know that you have great developmental coaches, like why wouldn't you want to take a crack at that? Just being able to develop that and allowing him to kind of dominate. And I think he also will be helped by the fact that Broderick Jones came in, his former teammate, and kind of dominated and really set the tone and reversed some of the Steelers' fortunes when it came to the running game.
Yeah,
I think this dude benefits from it. There's so many guys. Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma. I mean, we could just go on and on. JC, like down the list.
They're going.
It's
BYU
amazing.
had a good workout. He had a really good workout.
That's
freaky workout.
Sumatea. Kingsley Sumatea,
yeah, he was 6'0", 4'3", 329. He was rolling. So I mean, the thing that's interesting is, like, second round, I think Blake Fisher from Notre Dame's got a chance to go there. Christian Jones from Texas is going to probably go in that range. Like, we've got BYU, we've got Arizona. Like,
well, how about
there's a lot of guys right in that mix.
How about the, as you get a little bit further down the line, just real quickly, like the two guys from South Dakota State, McCormick and Greenfield, who had some pretty good tape at their level.
Jumped out of the gym.
And both of them, but, Broad and Vert, they were both like top of the class, so like you start throwing in, some pretty good tape at their level, and then you throw in that high level athleticism, that'll start to make you think, you know what I mean?
No question.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll finish up with the interior offensive line. We'll get to some of these other positions right after this.
Yeah.
All right, let's quickly go through the interior, the offensive line. To me, you got the big three, and when you're looking at those guys, I was shocked to see Frazier out there working out, like coming off the injury he had late in the year. He shows up at the Senior Bowl, just kind of go through the interview process, but he obviously didn't run the 40, but he did a really solid field workout. Big dude, 314 pounds, the center, which is ideal. Graham Barton from Duke is an impressive athlete who I was told by one team, he really wants to stay at tackle. Another team said, he'll play wherever. So his numbers are almost identical to Mitch Morse, who was interestingly a center in college to a tackle in college, back to a center in the NFL. Very similar. Very similar. In the
frame is like right there with Ragnow too.
Yeah,
like
big dudes. Big dudes. And then Jackson Powers Johnson, who's 334 pounds, was an interesting one, Buck, because you talk to some teams who are, they're going to prefer a little bit more agile linemen to climb up and do things.
Yeah.
And then you talk to other teams who, maybe don't have the biggest quarterbacks. They value the firm pocket that he's going to give you as a 330-pound guy.
Yeah, I think that is a good point to make about him, because look, for most of the conversation, like leading up until we got to the combine, JPJ was the guy that everyone talked about. You talk about being firm, being solid, like being physical, and all those things at the point of attack. He has that. The athleticism is one that is more scheme dependent. Do you want him to be out there moving or whatever, particularly at a time when we just got done celebrating Jason Kelce and what he's able to do in Freak Show.
Yeah.
He's different, but DJ, the point that you make about a firm pocket in front of a smaller quarterback, that's something that's bigger, because as these quarterbacks, and we'll get to the quarterbacks, it appears they're shrinking. The ones that we're playing, 6'1", 6'2", is becoming more of the norm than it used to be. It is really important that you have a stout guy at the point of attack.
No doubt. Rhett, let's keep the train moving here.
Sure.
We have the offensive line. Tight end wise, I'll be honest. There's a couple solid workouts there coming off the heels of last year. You knew this was coming, right? Last year was a historic tight end class. This is one of the leaner tight end groups that I can remember.
Well, and look, I thought Ben Sinnott from Kansas State did a nice job. And then, Bucky and I kind of knew it based off the week that we saw from him at the Shrine Bowl, but Tip Ryman, we knew was going to test pretty well. And I don't think a lot of people thought that at 207. Now, here's the thing. Fred the Sled is very glad to see Tip Ryman leave Indianapolis.
Yes. He's the only one who could move him.
That's it. He's the only one that moved it. Now, the thing that I was a little disappointed with, his hands did not look very natural to me. Like he was shooting his hands.
They don't throw him the ball. That's probably why.
Yeah.
That's probably why. So I'd love to see him catch the ball a little bit better. And look, with Bowers not working out, like you knew it was going to be a little less than from the tight end spot, right? But I thought those two guys, like, I was like, all right.
Theo Johnson,
of course, the athleticism.
Yeah, his athleticism stuff was matched up with Jimmy Graham in terms of the athleticism. But Buck, I have a question for you. The fact that so many teams are playing with the sixth offensive lineman, like that has grown. I have to pull the numbers, but you're seeing more and more of it every year. almost feel like it's kind of the elimination of the blocking tight end. Because teams,
100%.
Yeah, an extra and it allows you to keep another offensive lineman up on game day.
Yeah, like here's the thing. I kind of credit Sean Payton for doing that way back, like during their championship years or whatever. They always had the extra. He didn't even fake it. Like, hey, look, I'm just going to put the 6 offensive linemen out there. You guys know it. If we do pass it, it'd be a 3-man route and make it happen. But there is something to, instead of trying to bang our head on trying to find the guy that is the hybrid, that is half offensive tackle, half wide receiver, let's just put another offensive tackle there. And I think it will allow these other guys to play a role that is more suited to their talents as a flex or an H-back tight end type.
No doubt. Let's work outside here. Let's get to the wide receivers. Rhett, I'll hit it over to you first. Obviously we had the Worthy 40, but I think that's all been touched on and said, but outside of the Worthy 40, what struck you the most from that?
Ladd McConkey, best in show. Ladd McConkey was so good. I thought, he also benefited. I think the rest of his group was a little subpar running the routes. Now, look, Adonai Mitchell, put up, athletic freak, right, with the numbers. But then I was watching him run the routes and I was like, what's, Troy Franklin running the routes. I was like, this doesn't feel right. Now, I understand how those guys were used, especially Franklin. Like, he wants to get down the field. He looked a little bit uncomfortable in some of the other stuff that they were asking him to do running the routes. But I feel really good about McConkey being the 5th wide receiver off the board in this draft. And then him run 4.39. Like we were talking about it, right? If he goes 4.4, watch out. He went 4.39.
You see that though, like people that were thinking he was going to run the 4.5s. I'm like, well, you didn't really look at him then. He wasn't going to do that.
Yeah, and obviously the injury history is something to watch there. But him and Pearsall with their athletic profile,
oh, there you go,
ability.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. That's the one. If you can't get McConkey, then Pearsall is going to be right there. And I think we've talked about like how you break the position down as terms of specialists. I think both of those guys, in terms of being able to get in the slot, particularly Pearsall, they're going to wear people out. And Rhett, you talked about McConkey's athleticism, how flawless the positional drills were. I think you can say the same thing for Pearsall. Pearsall is really polished, really patient, does a great job of getting in and out of his routes. And then when you put down that 4.41 time that he clocked, I just believe, like, it's funny. We talk about supply and demand. The supply of wide receivers each and every year is crazy. And I believe this, and we'll have this on a later podcast, with the wide receiver numbers going up to like $30 million. I do wonder if some teams are going to start opting for a little bit of that Green Bay Packer approach. Like, hey, we may not spend the first round, but second, third round, we may get it. Maybe one of these guys pop, and we'll just keep cycling it out. Because, man, they're like 15 wideouts that we can point to and be like, oh, yeah, he's a good player. Oh, yeah, he's a good player. Oh, yeah, he's a good player. It just changes. It's just going to change the evaluation in terms of the value of the position, because you can get so many of these guys throughout the course of the draft.
That's why when you take what you see here and you try and apply it to the draft, and I look at teams like, if you look at 5 with the Chargers, you look at 6 with the Giants, those teams you could make a tackle case and a receiver case, and it's going to make for fun path to the draft, guys, because you're going to be able to sit up there and say package A, package B, assuming the Giants don't move up for a quarterback, what have you. But you're looking at what do those options look like? What tackle are you looking at in the second round versus what receiver? And it could, it'd be fascinating to be in the draft room, because look, hey, if it's ties, okay, I might lean in this position, but I think you're going to be in a position where you have like a 6.9 grade on a receiver, and like a 6.5 or a 6.7 grade on a tackle. And you're going to have to say, man, like, technically we're not taking the best player available if we take the tackle here, but we're acknowledging the depth of the receivers that we could get all throughout the draft. It's going to be, that's a debate, man.
And the blue chipness of the tackle spot, right? Harder to find.
But like Bucky said, these receivers are so dang expensive now too, that it's like, if I know, like, I don't know what you guys tell me your opinion, but Rome Odunze is my guy. I've established that. And I'm like, you watch everything that he did. I've never had more people unsolicited from teams as well as media members be like, dude, might be the classiest dude. Like, you talk about handling yourself with class. Like, Rome Odunze is that in spades.
Pro.
Then goes out there. He's a pro. He nails his interviews. He goes out there, runs 4.45 at 212 pounds, which I know he was disappointed in because in training he'd been running the high 4.3s. But that's a big man like that who's ultra competitive and smart. And I'm like, I don't know.
How many times you do the 3-cone, by the way? Like 10 times?
The only thing on that was different is like they were making him do it over again because either the hand went down or he nicked the cone or whatever. Like you don't get the option. Like for those that don't know, like you don't get to choose. I want to do the 3-cone, 20 times. No, that's not how that works.
Right. 2 times and you're out.
Yeah, but if you fault, they'll let you keep going. Right. Which one of them, there was a little bit of controversy because it was like I don't think he faulted. I think they blew the whistle. I don't know if they didn't get the time. You know how it is. Like sometimes you miss the time. You're like, oh, you got to do that again. Like, why? Why do I have to do that again? Well, like I'm not going to tell you I didn't get the number. So
I forgot to stop to watch.
Yeah. User error. But anyways, to me, I'm just like, man, if I'm a GM and I'm a first year GM or I'm,
I want to hit.
Put it in the fairway, man. Like you aren't missing on that, dude. Like that's as safe and solid as it gets.
Yeah.
The other one, hey, let's give real quick. I think this dude had more riding on it than anybody else. Now, some reps we're looking at quarterbacks in our coverage, so I can't see the receiver, the route. So maybe you guys can fill in the gaps here for me. But by my eyes, when I saw him out there, Tez Walker caught the ball after a Senior Bowl where he couldn't catch anything. It looked like a man who needed it more than anybody else had a solid day catching the ball, and he ran. We knew he was going to run and jump out of the gym.
Yeah, go ahead, Buck.
Yeah, no, I think that's the thing, and see that sometimes can be the thing about like all-star games. Like you see guys, and you talk about the nerves and anxiety, and sometimes it can overwhelm those guys, and so you have to go back and lean on the tape. When you watched him at North Carolina, this guy he could make every play. It wasn't hard for him. Like it was very easy when it came to catching. So it was good to see him in this environment that had more pressure on him, kind of come through and deliver. But I mean, yet again, we just talked about how crowded this wide receiver class is. Yeah. At a time when everyone's going to be looking for the next Puka Nacua, somebody's going to fall into a player that lands on day 3 that has no business being a day 3 player. And I'm not saying that Tez Walker is that. I'm just saying that so many wide receivers are available that on the third day, there are going to be a lot of guys that you kind of scoop up. And then when they play in the fall, how did this guy get to the 4th round? How did he get to the 5th round? I think there'd be a lot of that conversation bubbling up.
The other one, Rhett, real quick, and then hit your thought. But the I don't know if you guys have this. I have this every year where there's a guy that I'm like, on the tape, and then I get to the All-Star game and I'm like, I move him up a little bit. He's a little bit better than I thought. Then I go to the combine, I'm like, move him up a little bit more. I don't know that anybody traveled further from what my fall grade is to what it's going to be coming out of the combine than Luke McCaffrey.
Yeah. He looked really good. Now,
so he had a good workout.
He is a pleaser, right? He wants to get better. And so like I remember Chris Carter was down there when the receivers were running. Every time that Luke finished a rep, he go, CC, how'd it look? How'd we do? Chris was like, no alarms, keep working. It's all good. Keep getting in the back of line. Keep going, man. It's gonna be all right. We don't have to check in every rep.
I love it.
But he was faster than Christian, right? Yeah. And he's got that like, I'll make one of those wow play catches.
The Senior Bowl.
Yeah. So I think he could end up like this year's Puka Nacua type, if he gets in there on day 3, a guy that makes
I think that's where he is. I think he goes early on day 3. But I mean, that was somebody who I thought kind of fringe draftable on the tape. I didn't love him. And then you watch him for a week at the Senior Bowl. I'm like, he's better than that. Okay, I'm too low on him. And then you come out of the combine, you watch him run, you watch him move around. I'm like, he's plus family business. There's a lot of family business players in this draft
from so many different angles.
Yeah,
family business. I mean, he has it all in spades. Yes, he put on an outstanding workout. He was fabulous.
Go ahead, Rhett.
Two guys that I heard some buzz on down on the field, from just evaluators that were standing around was Anthony Gould from Morgan State.
Yep.
Ran really fast.
Who had the return in the East-West game?
East-West, yep. And,
Rhett always points out the 10-yard spin move.
He started at 35 and finished at the 45. His stride's not that long. I don't know what the deal is. Yeah. Anyway, and then Xavier Legette from South Carolina, runs 4.39. Big physical dude running 4.39. Yeah. I think he could have done a little bit better in the field drills, but I think the athletic profile, kind of definitely, raised some eyebrows there in a good way with what some of the times that he put up.
Yeah, good stuff, man. The other thing, and I'll wrap it up on this on the wideouts. If I'm a team, I'm kind of stoked that Malachi Corley couldn't work out. because I think he was going to run in the high 4.3s.
Yeah.
He had a great week at the Senior Bowl, and
I don't
it's
need
almost
everybody
like,
jumping
it's
on
almost
here.
like let's
Simmer down.
calm this down, simmer this down a little bit, and see if I can't sneak him up in the bottom of the second round.
He's an awesome interview, by the way. Awesome dude.
His tapes. I mean, he's just all just run after catch, just get in his hands and go. But anyways, we'll have to wait for his pro day to see him do his thing. All right, let's get to the running backs. Look, this is not a highly acclaimed position, but I thought there's some intriguing guys. I mean, look, Trey Benson running, almost identical time to Breece Hall was impressive as a big back. But to me, Marshawn Lloyd, he just hits every marker for me. Like when you watch him, I liked him at USC in the fall. Thought he had a great week at the Senior Bowl and practice, catching the ball, all those things. And then out here, he ran low 4.4s and moved around really, really well through the drills, Buck. So I don't know. He's one of those ones to me that if I'm looking for a running back, probably somewhere on day 2, I'd be in the Marshawn Lloyd business.
It's funny, DJ. One of the benefits of watching the drills is people always put a lot on the 40 time, right? And you look at the 40 time, you see people run a straight line, but the game for running backs is not in a straight line. It's about being able to do the stuff that the running back coaches put them through when they're navigating over the bags and making quick cuts and those things. So when you look at a guy like Marshawn Lloyd, when you watch that part of his workout, man, it was really good. Just really good in terms of the pitter patter, the balance, to be able to get in and out and do all those things. I like him. And then when you go back and you talk about the tape is really solid. And I think for the running back class this year, it's not about finding the RB1. It's about finding the right puzzle piece to fit the puzzle that you have in your backfield. Yeah. For some teams, that's going to be the big banging back. For other teams, it's going to be the fast scat back like a Bucky Irvin. And for other teams, it's going to be the guy that can just maneuver and be what we call that off-speed pitch, that change of pace back that is able to do it in a variety of ways. Lloyd can do that. And I also think a guy from Michigan, Blake Corum, can do that because his balance, his ability to kind of navigate and jump cut and do those things, to me, that is a big-time running back in terms of his workout and what he has. He just doesn't have the long speed and some of the other stuff that normally would make you package him as an RB1.
All right, hold on, Rhett. I'm texting Bucky the name you're going to mention right now. Buck, look at your phone. All right,
this is not Frank Gore.
This is no previous conversation. I'm just going to rely on my instincts. I'm just going to rely on my instincts.
Oh, for sure, 100%.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
What do you want to talk about?
Red. We're ready.
Garendo.
100%.
Garendo. Yeah. So first off, just to follow up on Bucky, I thought Blake Corum might have been the best box checker of the running back group. He runs that
bags. He was the best. He was actually the best, and he ran faster than people thought he would run.
Exactly. The 40 time was a huge win for him because that was obviously the question. He gets hawked a lot of times, beyond 15 yards running down the field. But you give him the ball inside the 5-yard line, that dude's going to score, right? That's 100%. Yeah, so I thought, to me, like, overall, Trey Benson was probably the best working through the field drills and then running the 4.39 with those tree trunk lower halves that he has. But yeah, Garendo is an interesting one because, I remember, watching IU play Louisville in person. I was like, holy smokes, Jawar Jordan is a home run hitter, right? I mean, like, this dude can go. You get him out in space, out on the perimeter, and he is gone. And we didn't see a lot of Garendo in that game. He returned some kicks, and we didn't see a lot of him at Wisconsin, right? In 4 years there, playing behind some big backs. And then you kind of dig into him a little bit. Best game of his career was the final game he played, which was a bowl game. You watch that, you're like, this dude's got some pop. Like, he can move. We saw it in the Shrine Bowl a little bit. And then he goes and runs 4.33, and he's a 10,500 meter guy. That's legit. And he jumps well too. To me, like, I'd move Garendo. I don't know where Jawar Jordan was going, but I'd have Garendo ahead of Jawar Jordan.
Just a much bigger dude.
Yeah. At 221 pounds? Come on.
Yeah. No, that was an interesting one. Yeah. And then we didn't get a chance. Obviously, Jonathan Brooks, coming off injury, didn't get a chance to see him. Braylon Allen did not run a 40. No. So, there's some other guys. Will Shipley, I was kind of looking forward to seeing him. Yeah, couldn't run. So
estimated 4.7. What does that do for you?
That hurts. Yeah. I already kind of dropped him down. But I mean, like, you watch the NC State game. He's got an 80-yard run, that NC State game. I didn't think he was a blazer. But I thought he would run like 4.57, 4.58. Yeah. That's tough. That's, when you look at that card, it can be kind of tough to buy there. I'll give you one example of why I think the numbers are fascinating here, and we'll keep it moving. But we'll get to the defense on the next episode.
Yeah.
But we were having this conversation about kind of like markers, right? Think about this. Terrion Arnold was this close to being 6 foot 190 with 32-inch arms with a 4.49 40. So Buck, as you know, the card up on the wall, when you see
everything.
He's a 6 foot corner, he's 190 pounds, he's got 32-inch arms, and he ran a 4.49. Like, that's a good looking card. Instead, he was 5'1", 189, 31 and 5/8, and ran 4.5 flat. Like, think about the difference in that just teeny tiny little number.
Just perception.
Yep.
It's everything. It's just perception. Like, I just remember, and he will be okay with me saying this, but I remember working for John Fox, and John Fox was big on the number and the card. And I just remember, like, being on the road. I can admit it now, I'm out the business, but I just remember being on the road. I think we took Richard Marshall. Remember the little corner from Fresno?
Yeah.
So Richard Marshall, and I can't remember what he did, but I knew that I had to move the number over just to make it, because there was a huge difference in 4.4 and 4.5. And it could be 4.51. I would make that 4.49 because I knew I had a chance to save him, just because when coaches talk, they don't talk about the last digit. They just either a 4.4 guy or a 4.5 guy. And so you talk about Arnold.
That's funny
conversation.
Yeah, we'll have that. We'll have the defensive conversation
here
down the road. All right, we got to quarterbacks now. This to me was really, you're kind of looking at that next three group because top three, the big three, we didn't see out there. So no Caleb Williams, which I really don't care, by the way. I know people are passionate about this. I really don't. Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, whatever order you want to put those guys in, we're going to have to wait on them. But I thought it was a race there with the next three. And I thought just throwing the ball shouldn't have been a surprise, right? Penix is just, he throws it different than everybody else.
Yeah. I would agree. And Buck, I'll get to you on this too, because, like, you know, we saw Penix and Bo Nix like 4 different times, kind of in a head-to-head type of scenario, right? You had the 2 times that they played, and then you had they're on the same team at the Senior Bowl, but you get to see them work, you know, rep after rep. You saw that in person, you know, DJ. We didn't necessarily get to see it the way you did, but then watching them here, I was like, it's kind of like no contest just based on arm talent.
as throwing,
you know?
throwers.
And now you throw everything else in, it begins to level out a little bit. And Bo, I think, is going to be a good player. I think he's got everything you want, right? And he's a perfectionist and a competitor and all that stuff. But Penix's arm talent, like, to me, it's still best in class. Like, I think with any of them, you know. And
I don't think that's that's even up for debate. Like, you want to line all these guys up and watch them throw.
It's Penix.
Penix throws it better than anybody. Like, just what he can do with the football. It looked like, Buck, I was waiting to hear the little whistle from the Nerf Turbo when it came out of his hands. Yeah.
So one, Rhett talked about when our preview, like, his hand size.
Yeah.
I mean, 10 and a half. 10 and a half, long arms, all of this stuff. It's not a surprise that he can just, like, grip the ball and put it where he wants to put it. We can talk about the way he spins it, the way that it comes out, all of those things. And so when we talk about the combine and why guys should work out and why some guys shouldn't, if you're a thrower like Michael Penix, I mean, this is your dream day. This is an exhibition to be able to just show everybody how well you can throw it. And I know there's not a defense on there, but it's something about watching him throw that certainly tickles your fancy as an imaginative offensive coordinator. You can just imagine what it'd be like. Now, I would say that the offense has to be different for him than everybody else because you don't get the benefit of the athleticism and movement. And I think it even puts a little greater pressure on the team builder to have an offensive line that's solid around him. But if he has that and he's able to throw from the grassy knoll, look out, because he can make every throw in the book.
It's good.
So one of the things, and we'll have him on, we'll have John Beck on as we go up to the draft, but he's been working with him. He's working with Jaden Daniels, JJ McCarthy. And one of the things he told me about Penix, which I did not know, he was telling me about the DeBoer offense. And Rhett, you might have been familiar with this going back to the Indiana time. But he said there's so many options and so much that has to be read post-snap in terms of receivers having options and choices. And he said this can be at different levels. So he said what's incredible about Penix is that he can see, okay, I've got my underneath read here, and then I've got my over-the-top read, but they're both choice routes. So he's got to be able to see, like literally see the whole picture. And so he said that's not, it's very difficult to do. So in terms
he
of that,
excelled in it.
He's going to be advanced versus what some of these guys are asked to do, and it's going to be foreign to him. He's had to really, really see the field and be able to see things similarly as receivers, and to the point where he was like, he would never throw like a Dunze under the bus when you're going through the tape on him. But like the national championship game, like I asked about, remember he missed a Dunze over the top and he was wide open.
Bad. Yeah.
Wide open. But they didn't see it the same. So, and whether to say Rome saw it right or Penix saw it right, but it wasn't just a simple, this is the call, he missed the throw. He saw one thing and anticipated him to go in one direction. Penix and Rome saw a different thing. But just an example of the choice and the options that existed in that offense. This is not just a paint by numbers, simple Simon offense that he was operating, Buck.
Let me ask, and Buck, and I want to get your take on this too. But go ahead with your thought, because I'll finish.
No. I was just going to say that speaks to the high IQ of both players. I believe that information not only helps Penix, but it helps us form the narrative around Odunze. The fact that he's playing in an offense that has so many options while you're on the move. As a receiver, like Rhett knows, the hardest thing to do is to be running full speed and have to make a decision based on what the coverage is doing simultaneously. So for Odunze and Penix to be able to do that so successfully at UW, they're going to kill it in the meeting room when it comes to checking out what they know and what they can do. To me, I think that's another feather in each of their caps. So that's what I wanted to get out there.
I agree with you. And the thing that I would ask now is, all right, the things we know about Penix, we know the top three guys are going in the top three, right? Is he the fourth guy off the board now? Is he going to be in a first round, do we think? Or the injury stuff and the age and all that?
I think that's the whole thing, is that if you do it in a vacuum on the ability level, he should be. He should be the fourth guy based off of that. But you've got the age of McCarthy, you've got the clean injury history there. You've got, Nix, who's both of those guys are old, but Nix has a cleaner medical side of it. And it's going to, I think they're totally different style quarterbacks in terms of what you're looking for. In other words, like if you're the Broncos, I mean, Bo Nix kind of fits into more of Sean Payton's profile of how he's, it's the Drew Brees thing. And I'm not saying that Nix is Drew Brees, but that's the style in which he plays. Which is just, let's just collect completions. Just bing, 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 bing. That's what Nix has done. So it's not as simple as just saying he throws it the best, he's the fourth quarterback. It's all that stuff kind of factored in. And that's kind of why I've had him in like the 30s or where have you, because I put him in that second round range, just because age and injury. I'm like, are you going to be confident enough to pull that trigger in the first round when you factor that stuff in? If you tell me, and I always am a little bit hesitant when you hear he's aced the medical, like there's 32 medicals. There's no way we've talked about
he aced them all.
Teams. He can ace the medical for the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs aren't in the Michael Penix business.
They've got a different risk profile too, right? It's a little bit different that way.
So it's only thing that matters is the handful of quarterback teams. What do those physicals look like? So that's the challenge.
And last thing I would say on this one, and I'll close it out, but like that 11 through 14 run, Vikings through Saints. If there's a team in there that really wants a QB and misses out, like I wonder if you get a team top of the second round that tries to come into the back 5 picks of the first.
I feel like this never happens. Like we
talk about it because we always talk about the 5th year option. And look, I think that was the case with what Levis went top of the second round, not the bottom of the first round. Like he was like the first pick to come off the board.
On.
So I think
they were picking. I can't remember. Did they come back up for Lamar?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's kind of the last one. I just envision Michael Penix. Like Michael Penix would be a perfect Raider back in the Al Davis days. In terms of
he'd be a perfect Raider in the current day.
You know what I'm saying? In terms of pushing the ball down the field. Like they are big play hunting with him. And I don't know if I've seen a better deep ball thrower in terms of just how it comes out. He's in
Devontae there.
He gets it, but is that too early? So that's the thing. So, and you talked about where I had him rated as my 4th guy because I was like, man, based on how they played, he deserves to be right up there. Like, I mean, you can make an argument that he outplayed Drake May, whatever, but the conversation and the debate between him and J.D. McCarthy and Bo Nix, it will be interesting. What are the factors or the deciding factors in terms of how do we stack them 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. And like you said, I mean, you hear some chatter that, some teams are like McCarthy better than Drake May. So, I mean, there's, I think we've kind of locked in that that's going to be the top 3. I don't think that's set in stone, but I do think that teams, and talking to a head coach specifically of a quarterback team, he loved Drake May's interview. And I'll put it this way: when you go through the tape, some of the sins are forgiven, and that's without, throwing anybody under the bus. Just saying.
Oh, no. I can believe that. And I knew he would kill it in that regard. Like this, look, we've talked about it. Like, this is what he does. We had him on the podcast, DJ. It's easy to fall in love with talking to him. He's a very mature, very self-deprecating guy who can handle the responsibilities of being the franchise quarterback while also ingratiating himself to the teammates. And I will say this, because this tends to happen in the pre-draft season. Like, his flaws will be magnified, but I think people have to understand and appreciate the talent that he has as an athlete, as a thrower. He has some different stuff. It'll just be interesting to see how all of this plays out, and what are you more convicted on, the tape or the person? Because if you're on the person, that's going to drive his value up.
2 things real quick, and then we got to move on to the AFC West. Number one, people, I think, lose sight of this. You have to remember, when you're evaluating players for a team, it's not your job to evaluate the performance only. It's the projection side of it. Yeah. So that's a lesson that I struggle with, because told it many times. I had Josh Allen ahead of Baker Mayfield. And then at the end, I was like, you know what? If I'm going to, put my actions where my words are, and I say accuracy, decision-making, poise are the most important factors, and look at how Baker Mayfield played at Oklahoma versus how Josh played at Wyoming. I flipped it, and I took Baker Mayfield's performance, and I did not put enough attention on the projection of what Josh Allen, could become and turn into. And so I'm just careful on that. I just want to remind people to say, hey, look, Jaden Daniels played the best of all these guys last year. You can say Drake May didn't play as good as a bunch of these quarterbacks we've been talking about, but there is also the projection, not just the evaluation of the performance, Buck.
And I would say I did that last year with Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. I felt strongly about CJ Stroud in terms of like being the prototype and all that other stuff, but I couldn't ignore Bryce Young's performance and his production. And at the end, I flipped it and put Bryce Young back at the top over CJ Stroud, and then CJ Stroud performs like we expect, like a pro. And so that is something too, because the draft is not just a production-based thing. It's that and the projection on how they're going to play as a pro. And when we're grading, that's what we're doing. We're grading them on how we expect them to play as a pro, not what they did as a collegiate player.
Yeah. And by the way, can we just give a hat tip to Keaton Slovis? 4.55 in the 40?
I didn't know he had that.
I did not see that coming.
That was the last thing I was going to say. I was going to give Devin Leary a shout out, because
for sure.
I thought outside the main guys, I thought he had the best workout.
No doubt.
He had a really good workout. So he's one of those ones to me. It was popular, like even Rattler. I actually thought he was better than Rattler, just watching him on the field going through the same thing. So that'll be interesting to see who's going to be in that mix. And there really hasn't been much of a middle class in quarterbacks over the years. You kind of have your top group of guys. There's usually a gulf. People wait. And then that's how Sam Howell ends up going in like the fifth round. And we all thought he would go in the second round.
Right.
So we'll see how that all shakes out. Okay, we've got to jump into the NFC West here. We've been doing AFC West. Thank you, Rhett. AFC West. Let's start first of all with the Kansas City Chiefs. What is the updated salary cap now for them? Do we have that on there? I don't know if we had.
They got $3.5 million.
3.5. Okay, So that's after the Snead move. Yeah. So they've got $3.5 million. We look at, you've got a whole host of building block players here, but I want to get to the championship foundation, which again, these are what we do with every single team going through these divisions. We need a quarterback. We need 3 offensive playmakers, 3 quality offensive line, 2 pass rushers, no matter where they come from, and 3 defensive playmakers in the back half of the defense. So linebackers and secondary. So obviously blue quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, elite player, still rolling obviously in his prime. Travis Kelce, even with the age, is a blue player all day long. You've got the greens coming up right behind him with the playmakers with Rashee Rice and Pacheco. You've got the blue offensive line with Creed Humphrey. You could make a case Trey Smith should also be a blue. NFL research has him as a green. You've got Joe Thuney listed as a yellow. I would imagine that's probably because of the injury, maybe.
Injury.
Yeah. Injury or contract concerns can be a yellow. Karlaftis is a green, really solid young player. Enedike Uzama would be the other pass rusher, but keep in mind, Chris Jones, I think they're going to get
put him
that
in there.
done. So that's a blue for Chris Jones.
Yeah.
And then defensive playmakers, I would say Trent McDuffie's a blue.
I'd color him up to blue. I'd say his name.
And L'Jarius Sneed is in a yellow because of the contract, I assume.
Yeah.
But he's a blue player as well. And I would say Nick Bolton.
Bolton is a blue player.
Blue. So we have him as green, but I would say he is a blue. So there's a lot of blue there. These guys aren't going anywhere.
They're 2-time champs.
Very long time. This was the year to get.
Yeah, this was the year to get him. And long time ago, like a wise team builder told me that it takes 8 to 10 blue chip players to compete at a championship level. Well, just reading off the little exercise that we did, it's no wonder why the Kansas City Chiefs are always in the conversation. And I mean, look, you could talk about their quarterback being a blue plus or whatever you want to give him, like the force magnifier. But the fact that they have so many blues around him, maybe we underestimated what the Kansas City Chiefs were and what they will be for the next 2 to 3 years, because they are well positioned to be a team that is sitting at the top of the perch for a long time.
I think they might have, when we get these colors updated, they might have the most defensive blues.
How crazy is that?
By the way, with the most blue player on earth, right?
Yeah. Like they trade away Tyreek Hill, and we can argue that the team is better than what we talked about. They're not the aerial circus, but they are a better team.
Is
unbelievable. Just
100%.
Raiders again.
Yeah, Raiders have 35 million, 35.3 million. They've got free agents. You're looking at Josh Jacobs, Hooper, Luminor, Andre James. So if we get to their colors here, we've got Aiden O'Connell listed as a purple. A pink, which is an unproven young player. We've got Devontae Adams in obvious blue. Jacoby Myers is a green, which is a good solid player. You've got Mayer is a pink, a tight end from the other playmaker spot. The offensive lineman Colton Miller is a green.
He could border. He could
he's
border.
Close to a blue, but I'd say he's a really good green.
Yeah.
You've got Parham and Thayer Munford are pinks, so they need some other premier offensive linemen to fill those spots. Max Crosby blue as blue gets.
Yeah.
For the one pass rusher spot, Tyree Wilson has got a long way to go. I think he's a pink here. And then the defensive playmakers, this is the other thing that they need to add.
We need a lot of green and blue.
A lot of yellow here with Epps, Merrick, Nate Hobbs, solid player, Jack Jones, who came over, made some plays, but these are all yellow, guys with age or injury or contract concerns. Not a lot to go on the back end of that defense. But I would say, as we're looking at this group here, guys, the name that just popped up today, that I was shocked. We were talking about this beforehand. But if you took that defense and you have Max Crosby outside, what would that look like, Buck, if you took Christian Wilkins and plopped him down? I know there's work to do in the back end, but I'll tell you what, that back end would look a lot better if you had Christian Wilkins playing inside next to Max Crosby.
Well, I'm glad that you brought it up, because remember, Patrick Graham was a part of that staff that was that brought Christian Wilkins in. And so if you add a dominant inside player to go with Max Crosby on the outside, it changes the equation for that defense. This is a team that they got a lot of young players that they need to grow and develop, and they have a bunch of money where they can kind of pay and devote some assets to bringing some blues back. But this will be the challenge that Antonio Pierce faces. Can you get the young guys to play a notch above where they're at now, while also kind of incorporating and bringing in some of these blue chip players that maybe you can get off the free agent market?
And I would say, along those same lines, even if you're able to go out and get Christian Wilkins up there, you're obviously, with Colton Miller on the left side, like maybe you're in JC Latham territory. You want a big right tackle there at 13 where the Raiders are picking, but you're probably also you're getting pretty close into Byron Murphy land too, as a guy with a, stud interior disruptor in there. If you want to. Yeah. So I think there's that's actually a really good spot for the Raiders to get bigger, tougher, and stronger up front, on either side of the line of scrimmage, if we're looking at the draft.
No doubt. We get to the Broncos, who on the heels of the report about Russell Wilson, who's going to be cut, that will put them at they're over the cap, 16.4 million over. So we've got some cap work to do here, but it went from 24, at least it got down to 16. They are picking in the first round at 12. Then they have no second round pick. They're picking at 76. Cushenberry's a free agent, which, by the way, every year there's these free agents. You're going to be shocked at what they get. What do you see what this dude ends up getting?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to get some money.
He's going to get some money with so many teams needing centers. So keep an eye on that one. So quarterback-wise, Stidham, I mean, I guess we put Stidham probably, I think he's going into the last year of his deal.
Yeah.
So, he's probably a yellow there. Javonte Williams, hasn't quite been able to stay healthy and pop like I thought maybe he would. So they've got him as a yellow. We've got Mims, who's a good young player. Who I think's got a chance to really grow here. He's got a chance to be a green, I think, pretty soon. He's a pink. You've got Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. The playmakers are yellow. I think that's because of contract, and who knows if they're going to be around.
Yeah.
3 quality offensive linemen. Miners is a really good player. He's a green. McGlinchey just so. I could make a case you could maybe drop him down, but he's listed as a green. Garrett Bowles, contract-wise, age-wise, I'm guessing is why he's a yellow.
Yeah.
Defensive pass rushers, you got Zach Allen, who's brought over as a good player, is a green. And then you've got some pinks here with some intriguing young players with Benito, Jonathan Cooper, Baron Browning. And then defensive playmakers in the back end. Surtain obviously is a blue. Simmons,
he's a blue, but
to me, he's a blue as a player, but I think that might be more,
contract
down to the end, contract wise.
Yeah.
And then Daquan McMillan. So if you're looking at a place to start there, I think obviously the quarterback is one. But Buck, where would you prioritize here with the rest of this when you're looking at more playmakers offensively? You're looking at another pass rusher up front.
Man, look, I think you got to build your team to win a division with Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. I think you have to get another pass rusher. As much as I would like to think that they're going to find a quarterback, we know how hard it's going to be, particularly where they're picking. And there's not one that they're going to snag on the free agent market. This has to be one where they're going to have to build up the defense, and you're going to have to lean on Sean Payton's wizardry with either Stidham or a young quarterback to figure out a way to score enough points to support a defense that has to carry the water.
So if you're not satisfied with whoever the fourth quarterback is, like if you don't feel the value is there at 12, I think you're firmly in the either Dallas Turner, Latu, Jared Verse, one of those 3 should be there at 12. You would think. I mean, I guess it's possible they're all gone. Depending, obviously with the Vikings sitting there at 11, you got to wonder if that's a spot for one of those guys and how many of them get into the back into the top 10. But that feels like a great place to go get a blue chip pass rusher. And then you fold in Benito, Cooper, and Browning as players who we might have as pink, but with possibility to get into that green on a rotational basis. And now you're feeling a lot better about where that defense is.
No question. Let's keep it moving here. Finally, we got the Chargers coming off a 5-12 season. They are picking 5 and 37 in the first 2 rounds. Have the 3rd round pick as well. Salary cap wise, some work to do. As we're recording this, they're $35.5 million over. There's some moves they can make to get under, I think, pretty simply when you look at the decisions to make really on the 2 receivers with Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and the 2 pass rushers with Bosa and Mack. If we're looking at the colors here, Herbert's a blue as the quarterback. The offensive playmakers, they have Keenan and Mike as yellows because of the salary cap stuff. So they're going to have to make decisions there. I would imagine Keenan would be an extension candidate. As soon as he gets extended, he goes right back into the blue category.
Yeah.
You've got the 3rd receiver there. I would argue Josh Palmer would be the guy over Quentin Johnson there. And he'll be a yellow, though, because he's coming into the last year of his deal, I believe. Then you've got Slater at tackle. That's a blue. And then you've got a couple pinks here with Zion Johnson and Jamari Sawyer. Hoping those guys in this new offense with Harbaugh coming in can maybe elevate themselves to be greens.
Yeah.
Pass rusher, they're both going to be yellow because of the contracts, Bosa and Mack there. Tuli Pelotu's a green, played really well last year. So he'll have one of those spots. And then defensive playmakers, you've got Derwin James and Asante Samuel as greens. I guess Derwin didn't have his best year last year. I'd still argue he could be a blue.
Yeah.
And then Eric Kendricks, who we'll see what happens with him contract wise. He could be a salary cap cut, but he's a yellow. So I think once they restructure these deals or make these decisions on which one of the big 4 that they're going to keep, that the colors, at least Bucky, will look a little bit better on this chart.
Yeah, they should look better. Keenan Allen, for one, is a guy who can improve. I know that there's been speculation about Bosa being gone. I think you have to keep one of the pass rushers. Like, you can't let both those guys go. I think
they will.
Yeah, I think they find a way to get it. Derwin James, I like what Jesse Minter has already talked about, unleashing Derwin James. I feel like he's been underrated when he's at his best and kind of doing things that kind of fit his skill set. He can be a blue player. So I'm really optimistic. I think my optimism springs from the talent that we're talking about here, but more so the coaching and how we've always seen Jim Harbaugh take his teams to another level just through coaching. So I expect the Chargers to be right there. And I think some of these guys that we have in these different color designations will end up being blue chip players for the Chargers.
So, I think this is intriguing as we get to the draft too, because obviously sitting at 5, man, you're going to have probably your choice of one of those top 3 wide receivers, right? One of them's probably gone at 4 if all things stay the same, but it's Jim Harbaugh's team. Like, we need to build this thing. We need a road grader up front too, right? And so if you don't want to pick there at 5, right? Now the question is, who wants to come up to 5 to maybe get
who their perfect trade back candidate is?
Who?
Fatanu. Because you've got Pipkins. You got Pipkins at right tackle for another year. It doesn't cost you much. Who's a functional right tackle? You could put him at guard year 1, and then he kicks out the following year, and you're rock and rolling. But he would be a butt kicker in that offensive line. They want to run the ball. That dude, he can get after people.
Yeah. So there you go. Like, how far down do you feel comfortable going there? Into the 9 to 11 range, 9 to 12 range?
Absolutely. No, I think you get to. I think if you trade to, I don't know if you want to trade inside the division. I think the Broncos are 12, right?
They are. Yeah.
So you've got the Vikings at 11. The Vikings want to come up. Hey, I'm gonna get Fuaga or Fatanu lock. I'm getting one of those two guys.
Sure. That's awesome.
And Fuaga's the same. Play him at guard for a year before he kicks out. No problem.
That's a win. That's a total win for the Chargers if they can get one of those deals done.
Yeah. All right, we've gone over our time here, but it's been fun. My voice only started leaving me about 15 minutes ago.
That's okay. So, you powered through.
That's all right. You made it through.
Yeah. Made it as long as I could. All right, guys, this has been fun. Appreciate you guys hanging with us today. Again, we'll be back again. Another episode. We'll jump to the defensive side of the ball, the combine, continue to roll through these divisions as we head towards free agency, which is right around the corner. Rhett, Bucky, DJ here. Appreciate you. We'll see you next time on Move the Sticks.